Hello, hello. Let me welcome you on this very particular tour that we've put together in cooperation with Czech Tourism United States, the city of Pilsen, the Pilsen region, and the one and only Pilsner Urquell Brewery. My name is Michaela, and I'm one of the co-owners of Prague City Adventures, a travel agency that before pandemic was running regular walking tours around the city of Prague. And during the pandemic, we've pivoted and we've started running live streamed virtual tours on different topics and areas, and now also in different Czech cities as this amazing city of Pilsen. And you might wonder what gives us the credentials to run a virtual tour in the Pilsner Urquell Brewery. Well, our team has won the Best World's Beer Tour Award from TripAdvisor reviewers 3 times in a row. And I think that was largely due to the huge efforts and lots of beer drinking on the parts of our amazing guides that are here with me today. And that is Johanka and Martin. They are located in the Pilsner Urquell Brewery complex in Pilsen, and they're ready to walk you around the most interesting parts and share the story of how this revolutionary beer style came to existence. Now, I just want to give you a bit of housekeeping announcements. I'll be watching over the chat. So if you have any questions, please feel free to write them. I'll try to answer them, or I will ask Martin and Johanka at the end of the tour. We have about 30 minutes. Hold on to your glasses. And now, Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Misha, for the word. And I have to say that it's a great honor being here in the beautiful historical town of Pilsen. And not only that, I am here at a very special location. It is the famous Pilsner Urquell Brewery. Uh, Johanka and I, we will take you through the brewery, at least part of it, and we'll share some of the facts and the history of this brewery, because it is quite amazing. Now, although you have maybe not heard of this brand, I'm pretty sure you were very close to it. And the history of this brewery, it goes back to the 1800s. And at that time, here in the city of Pilsen, the quality of beer was very poor. And it was so bad that even the town hall decided to take some action. The town hall had a problem with the poor quality, because they were collecting taxes from the sale of beer, and it was constantly decreasing. They decide to order that all the lousy beer is to be emptied out of the barrels and poured into the gutter in the middle of the town square. And even today, when I realize what happened in that time, it brings tears to my eyes. It is a tragic moment for every beer lover. The local brewers, they join forces, and they also financially contribute, and they invite a talented brewer from Bavaria, Germany, who arrives to Pilsen, and he starts the amazing history of this beer. And with his first batch of this beer, he actually comes up with a new style of beer. And this style becomes so popular, not only here in the town of Pilsen, it then is distributed to Prague, but then also other parts of Europe. Vienna follows, also London, and by the end of the 1800s, it even makes its way to the USA. And this beer style becomes so popular that actually until today, some 70% of all the breweries in the world, they started copying this original. So anywhere in the world, when you drink a beer that is marked as a Pilsner style beer, it is a copy of this one and only original. And what does it take to brew a top quality beer? Well, I will leave my colleague Johanka to explain that for you.
Thank you very much, Martin, and welcome everyone. My name is Johanka, and I am actually now in the museum part of the brewery. This is a part that you can visit yourself when you come to visit. And I'm going to be answering a very important question, and that is, what are the most crucial ingredients that go into making an awesome beer? And before I answer, actually, maybe you know a little bit about it. So feel free to write in the chat what are the 4 ingredients of beer, if you know, and I will be actually making my way to the exposition of the ingredients that's available to all the visitors here in the Pilsner Urquell brewery. So as I enter, I'm going to switch to the front view so you can see for yourselves. And I can see many of you have some great ideas. We're going to start with the one that's all over here, and that is barley, or to be more specific, from that barley, we make malt, and malt is the first ingredient. The way it goes is actually we start with just your regular barley, and then we germinate it. We trick it into thinking it's going to sprout, and that way it releases all the sugars that are in the grain, and at that point we dry it and it becomes the malt that we use. So this is where the beer takes 2 things, its sweetness and also its color. So that is number 1. Many of you have mentioned also the water. You can see we're entering the water exhibition, and you're going to even hear it, not only see it. Here in Pilsen, we have a very good water for beer brewing. It is very soft. There is not many minerals in it, so there's also not much odd flavors to conceal. So the beer can be light and effortless and just very drinkable. And you can see in here where the water comes from. It comes from the wells that are under the city of Pilsen at the depth of 100 meters, which is around 330 feet. And you can see it's almost as low as the Cathedral of St. Bartholomew's in the main square of Pilsen is high. So I think this is a rather helpful diagram here in the museum. Now, I've seen some of you mentioning alcohol, and some of you also mentioned yeast. Those 2 are very strongly connected because it is actually yeast that's responsible for alcohol emerging in the beer in the fermentation process. It eats up the sugars from the malt, and it actually makes alcohol. And one more thing, the thing that we all really like in beer, and that is the bubbles. And in here you can actually see an example of brewery yeast. It's very important to mention that the strain of yeast that is used to make the Pilsner Urquell was actually brought from Bavaria with that brewmaster Martin was mentioning earlier. So he brought a rather revolutionary element in here. And I've seen many of you have mentioned the hops as well. I think when you think of beer, if you think of ingredients, hops are probably the first that enter your mind, and that's absolutely correct. If you were ever wondering how hops actually look like, we have a great example in here. And this is a rather specific kind of hop. There are many different kinds all over the world, but here in the Czech Republic, we have actually one of the noble hops, one of the originals, you can say, and the name of it is Žatecký poloraný červeňák. Or if you struggle with Czech language a little bit, which is understandable, then the name of it that you might know is Saaz hops. And you can see how hops are grown. And what is so specific about this kind of hops is that it's actually not very bitter. It actually has a very pleasant herbal flavor. It's very refreshing. It's very easy to drink, not too overwhelming. And well, it adds to the easiness with which we like to drink our pilsners. But those are the four technical, you can say, ingredients that beer requires. So we have barley, water, yeast, and hops. All four of those are here already even before the 19th century. And this is probably part of the frustration that the citizens of Pilsen had with the brewers that weren't able to make a good beer out of it. This is why they invited the fifth element, the fifth ingredient, the one and only brewmaster from Bavaria, Joseph Groll. And what he brings to the equation is his passion for brewing beer. And to talk about that passion a little bit more, I'm going to give the floor to Martin, as he's a specialist on the topic.
Thank you for the compliment, Johanka. Yes, I agree. Not only that I'm a specialist, of course, but also with the passion that was brought by Josef Groll from Germany, Bavaria. Now, you might be wondering, how come does a German brewmaster show up at a Czech brewery? Well, there's a logical explanation to that. The Czechs and Germans, we have coexisted in this part of Europe for centuries. And although being two different nations, we do have one thing in common, and that is the passion for beer. And that is, of course, one of the very important elements besides the specific strand of yeast brought by, but he did use the hops and the local barley, as Johanka has mentioned. And I am actually now standing in the Hall of Fame of the Brewmasters, and you can with me have a look at the pictures here, the long row of pictures of the brewmasters, all sharing the passion for beer. The first one in row is Josef Groll, the one who has established and created this new beer style. And I have to say that he had worked here at the brewery for some 3 years. And after those 3 years, he returns back to his hometown in Bavaria, where he continues to brew at his own brewery. And I find it quite symbolic that Groll, after many years, he dies sitting at a table and drinking beer at his own brewery. And I find it quite symbolic, and also showing what devotion he had to the beer. Same like all these other brewmasters, because their task after Groll has left was relatively, and until today it's relatively simple. It is to maintain the flavor and quality of the beer that was created in 1842 by Josef Groll. To maintain the same process, not to change the recipe, and to make sure that only the right ingredients are used to secure the great flavor of this beer. And what was it like when Josef Groll in 1842 was brewing his first batch? Well, that's something that Johanka will now tell us a little bit more about.
Thank you, Martin. Well, I have actually made my way from the museum exhibition to the historical brewing room, maybe also to give us a little bit more of an idea of the surroundings of Joseph Grow when he was embarking on this new exciting journey of brewing the first batch of Pilsner Urquell. And when it comes to beer historiography, it's very rarely that we actually have a specific date to come back to. Usually it's like, oh, we estimate somewhere in the 16th century. And in here, this is rather specific. So we're going back all the way to the 5th of October, 1842. Here in Pilsen, Joseph Grow walks into his brewing room and he's got a rather clear plan. So what he's planning to brew, what he's following, the recipe is rather easy. It's the recipe that he's been brewing for a long time already, the Bavarian lager. He knows the procedure by heart. He takes the soft water, mixes it with malt and boils out all the sugars. Then he adds the hops to the equation and infuses the beer with a nice flavor. After it all cools down, he adds yeast, and then the beer ferments, primary fermentation, and then the secondary one in the barrels. And that secondary one actually takes quite a long time. It's after 5 long weeks of waiting on the feast of Saint Martin that Joseph Grow is finally able to tap that first batch of beer. And well, it was a very auspicious day with a very good patrons. I'm very happy that we have Martin on board with us today as well. And you can just imagine the scene because it is Joseph Grow surrounded by everyone in Pilsen, being very excited how this new beer is going to taste like, what's it gonna be like. So they tap this beer and the glass of Joseph Grow fills with this beautiful golden liquid with cloud-like creamy foam on top. It's already a spectacle even without trying it yet. Even better, he takes the first sip and his eyes start shining a little bit brighter because what's happening in his mouth is nothing that he ever experienced before. There is this perfect balance of the sweetness of the malt and the bitterness of the hops. There are bubbles of CO2 just quenching the thirst so perfectly. And the beer is not only inviting him to take the next sip, it is inviting him to take the next glass and one after that as well. So I think right at this moment, at the very beginning, at the first sip that he takes, he already knows he has brewed a masterpiece, and that first batch is going to change the course of history. I have to say, I agree with the original statement of Joseph Grow. I do absolutely agree that he has changed the history of beer with that first batch. What about you, Martin? What's your opinion?
I totally agree with you, Johanka. It has been a historical moment. And here at the museum, we can see photographs of some more of the historical moments happening here at the brewery. But the museum has a number of really interesting items that deserve to be seen. But there is one artifact that I would like to actually show you because I think it is something very special. And it happens to be a open fermentation vessel that is just now here in front of me. And we're looking at the original and authentic open fermentation vessel that was used in 1842 by Joseph Groll to brew his first batch of beer that became so famous. And what is interesting about it is that the local brewers, the people from the Pilsner Urquell brewery during the Second World War would hide this vessel by burying it underground. So they will prevent it from being collected as scrap metal for the weapon industry. And they managed to save this unique artifact, and it's actually the holy grail of the brewery. And again, it shows us what passion and devotion the local brewers had, and that they were willing to even risk their lives to save this artifact. Until now, we've been speaking about the history, but I'm curious, what is it like the brewing at the brewery today? Johanka, can you tell us more about what's it like in the modern times?
Absolutely, Martin. For that reason, I have actually moved now to the modern brewery. This is the brewing room where the magic happens even today. So I'm going to actually turn around to let us take a better look. And you can imagine 179 years have passed from the first batch being brewed by Joseph Groh. And the beer, the Pilsner style of beer, became the most popular beer style in the whole wide world. As Martin has mentioned at the very beginning, 70% of the beers that are brewed worldwide today are the Pilsner style, actually. So no wonder this is the biggest brewery in the Czech Republic today. Obviously, throughout the years, it had to grow a little bit in its capacity. And here right now, we have this huge brewing room. You can see those kettles, beautiful and shiny. They are much larger than the one we saw moments ago. And you can imagine, just for your imagination, actually, this brewing room has the capacity of 18 batches of beer a day, and one batch is 1,500 of gallons. So I'm going to leave it up to you to do the maths, but you can see already the numbers are overwhelming. And it is, of course, until today, the most popular beer brand in the Czech Republic as well. The recipe, as Martin has stressed before, hasn't changed from its very beginning. Of course, the new modern technologies are being added to the equation, but it's the task of the brewmasters to ensure that even though the modern technologies are being applied, the legacy of this beer remains untouched, and it's still as delicious as always. So obviously brewing a great beer is one thing, but serving it, cherishing it, and its part in the Czech beer culture, that's something else. So I'm going to leave the word now to Martin, and I'm going to try and catch him and join him to show you how a beer should be properly cherished. So while Martin is talking, you can still see me making my way through the brewery and trying to find my way to the source of the beer, to the top.
Thank you, Johanka. And just to explain, of course, I want to stress basically that brewing top quality beer is just one part. But what is also essential, it is to make sure that the beer not only has the proper ingredients, but after it is brewed, that it has proper care. The storage of the beer is only at a certain specified low temperatures, and even during transportation, this should be or must be maintained. After delivering it to the bars and restaurants, there again, storage is important, that the low temperatures are maintained. And of course, before tapped, well, the tapping device also needs to be regularly sanitized. And the tapping itself, it is a process that it is not just one step, but it is a ritual. And I have to say that the people here at the brewery, they do train everybody who distributes the Pilsner Urquell beer. And we can actually see how this is done. Of course, visiting a brewery without tasting the beer would be a huge mistake. And those visitors that make it here to the brewery complex, they can enjoy a beer at the biggest beer hall in the Czech Republic with a capacity of some 550 people. And the restaurant is also famous for its excellent Czech traditional cuisine. Combining beer and traditional Czech cuisine, of course, that is not exactly a diet combination. Nevertheless, it is definitely worth trying, because you should know that here within the complex, the calories don't add up. So if you want to visit this restaurant, it is called Na Spilce within the brewery complex. And I am now in the visitors center of the brewery. And here in front of me, we can see a tap, and we will be also able to see how a proper beer is tapped. What is the right way of tapping the beer? First of all, we need to start off with a clean glass, and this glass is rinsed immediately before tapping the beer. The beer is tapped at an angle of 45 degrees, so that the beer slides along the wall of the glass, not dissolving the carbon dioxide, the natural carbon dioxide in the beer. Otherwise, the beer would taste flat. The beer is tapped in a way that on top there is at least 2 fingers of a snow white, thick and creamy foam. Uh, when tasting the beer, we actually can taste it with all the senses. We start off with swirling the beer gently, and we can sense the mild aroma. If we then continue having a look at the beer, well, we will notice that it has a golden color. This color is specific for this beer. The golden color is because of the brewing process, and also due to the specific ingredients. When we taste the beer, what we will taste is, as I mentioned, a white, a creamy, thick foam, indicating that the beer is of a high quality. And the flavor, in the flavor, we will taste the very pleasant bitterness of the hops, and also the sweetness of the malt, both in a perfect combination, making this beer something unique. And I will now have to excuse myself, because I just need to taste this. And when
Martina? Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, now we have to remain very still and very quiet, as we are approaching a miracle of sorts. We have a male Czech beer drinker at the source of the beer itself, and you can see how lovingly he's cherishing the glass, and with what kind of admiration he looks at the beautiful color, and with what thirst he's also trying a sip after a sip, leaving a significant foamy mustache over his mouth. This is not an unusual sight here in the Czech Republic, and especially in the city of Pilsen. You're going to find yourself many times observing such a scene. There is no need to be afraid of it. There are ways for us to remain not only safe in this environment, but actually to also enjoy ourselves. So we're going to learn some very useful phrases for when you come to a bar, the first steps we are going to approach the bar, and we have to remain very still, no sudden movements. I don't want Martin to think I'm after his beer. I'm going to actually get my own. So first we're going to turn our steps to the bartender, and here the very important phrase that we're going to use is pivo prosim. That means beer please, and it will guarantee us a standard order of a half a liter of beautiful golden Pilsner Urquell beer. So pivo prosim is the magical words, and you can see the beer is already being tapped for me. Now this is going to open the doors to many bars and to the hearts of the Czech beer drinkers alike for us. But to make more friends in a bar, not only do we need to have our own beer, we also need to know how to say cheers. So I'm going to grab my beer now, and I'm going to try this out on Martin. I'm going to say na zdraví, Martin, na zdraví. Excellent. So now, well, as I've already done that, I'm going to show you how it's properly done together with Martin. We have nothing more to add. We only need now to quench our thirst by drinking wonderful Pilsner Urquell beer. So it's up to you, Misha. The floor is yours. Na zdraví.
Absolutely, I'm cheering back to you because I had to get my own glass of beer myself. I couldn't listen to you do this tour in the Pilsner Urquell Brewery without doing so. Thank you very much, both of you. It was wonderful. If anyone has any questions, please write them in the chat now, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask them. Now is the time. And as it seems that we have answered all the questions throughout the tour, well, I guess that's about it. I would like to thank both Martin and Johanka for the tour, and to all of you listening and watching us. We really hope that you will take our word for it, that this Pilsner Urquell Brewery is not wonderful only as the best beer that they brew, but also as a wonderful place for visitors. So do come. It's only an hour and a quarter drive from Prague, and they're open daily, or they will open after the pandemic, of course, as soon as possible. So they will be looking forward to you all. And so will we in
Misha, muted.
I accidentally muted myself. And I wanted to say that we'll be looking forward to you also at Prague City Adventures in Prague on our roadshow tours or live ones. And now there's nothing more left to say, but please grab a glass if you have it nearby. And I will count to 3 and we'll practice the important phrase that we've learned, which is na zdraví. So 1, 2, 3. Na zdraví.
Na zdraví.
Na zdraví.